Welcome to episode 99 of Manifesting with Meg, Conversations with Extraordinary People. Today, our special guest is Sulavon Bollinger of Sulávon's SheShed. And do I have a treat for all of you guys? This is a welcome of the August in celebration of friendship. The theme tonight on our 99th episode is Make It a Habit to Rest When You Are Weary. So all of you who are coming up on the end of your summer vacation, it's time not to forget to rest before you got to go back to the hustle and bustle. For those of you who are on quote unquote hiatuses, this is time. You don't forget to rest now. And remember, this is a show about transformation, dreams, inspiration, true happiness, discovering bliss. And we're all just a conversation away from extraordinary. Time to wake up to a universe packed with possibility. And I have a great guest to help you all do that. This is a monthly show that's intentional. We get inspirational around our categories. Tonight, we have the wonderful magical guide to bliss to show us the way. Get intentional and pick a number between 3 and 397. That's right. You all know the drill. And away we go. And listen to this wonderful, wonderful powerhouse's biography. Sulávon, and I have to ask you why you call yourself the Renaissance Dollie, because that is definitely a question I have. So she is Sulávon, but she's also the Renaissance Dollie or Dollie. She's been active on and off of modeling and entertainment industries since 2007 in South and Southeast Asia, Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles. So I feel like I'm stepping into the big league tonight with you. When active as a talent, she won recognition for her work as a pioneering petite fashion model in the American market and served as the title holder for Miss Fashion Week's Petite Los Angeles, California. And I definitely want to show this in the stream while I'm talking about her, because look at how awesome this picture is. I told her a woman who wears a tiara is someone after my own heart. And certainly look at her. She's dazzling with her own tiara here. And with her, when her respective title ended, she returned to serve as Honorary Talent Judge for Miss Fashion Week 2018. She's currently the host of Sulávon's SheShed on WWTVN-WOTV with a global OTT TV audience of 50 million, which is unbelievable. It's hard to even fathom. In addition to working as an award-winning model and past digital marketer, she's worked interchangeably as a production coordinator in the entertainment industry and a project coordinator in the real estate development. You've worked extensively in corporate and independent residential scale historic renovations of property in New York, Baltimore, and DC. Now, that's something I'm definitely going to have to ask you about, is that you actually restore historic properties. Is that what happens then with regard to that? We'll talk about in a bit. But you also served as an HR liaison, coordinated all projects by recruiting high integrity union and non-union contracted talent. You've ensured that all contractors, union or non-union, were treated in a humane and non-abusive environment, contrary to many industry practices, which is a breath of fresh air, like I said. Although exhibiting a very friendly, playful, youthful demeanor, and sometimes soft-spoken, this is absolutely my experience of her. She packs quite a punch in anything she sets her mind to, regardless of the industry. And how lucky we are to have you joining us here tonight. Welcome, Sulávon, to the Manifesting with Meg. Like I said, I'm really excited. The 99th episode. Welcome. Did I miss anything that I need to highlight? Because certainly that's a lot. You do a lot, and it's quite
amazing. I've been
amazing.
working since I was 14, so
No, that's,
most people are like, "Are you in your mid-30s?" No, not yet, but I'll let you know when I get there.
Well, it's so amazing that someone who is, nowadays it just seems like more and more a lot of younger individuals have a lot of confidence that they're just going to go take the world by storm, and you certainly are one of the most amazing people in your young age. That have you done is just what goes before you is just amazing. And welcome, Beth. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for congratulating 99. I feel it's kind of a lucky one. Not that 100 is any lucky, but 99, I think it kind of feels good on 88. 99 on 88. Let's do this. So tell me, one of the things I said at the outside of the show was the quote for today is rest when you are weary, refresh and renew yourself, your body, your mind, your spirit, then get back to work. Ralph Marston is an American writer. And I love this because I really do believe that synchronicity, things pop up when you need to hear them most. And although working hard is definitely a key to a successful life, you have to rest. You have to renew on a consistent basis or you will burn out. And I know reading your bio, I when do you even have time to rest when you are weary? I'm curious. What are your
Oh, I
thoughts
had
on
a
all
burnout with digital marketing. I did it since 2011, and then right in 20 around 2018, 2019, I just burnt out. And so
wow.
I moved on to doing broadcasting. So it was just like right when I had the burnout with digital marketing, broadcasting came along. So it was that
So
synchronicity.
was it a seamless process from digital to broadcasting?
Mhm. Yeah, it just kind of flowed. So I was like, "Oh, well, that's ironic."
That is isn't that fun? I just love that when, like, when you feel one door is closed, sometimes in your face, you just turn
Mhm.
around and maybe you'll see one wide open waiting for you to just, like, sashay on in with your tiara and everything that comes with you, for sure, right?
Oh,
You know,
exactly.
what are I always say nothing innovative comes from burnout. I think there is a time that we all need to have an emotional or physical reprieve so that we can fill our bank account back up so that we can actually function and enjoy what it is that we're doing. And I think that one of the things that, is a part about enjoying is making those memories that make a life. And, you become your own best friend when you are allowing yourself that moment in time to step back and actually take a deep breath in and see what you like and what you don't like and move forward accordingly. And like you said, when digital media was burning you out, you're like, okay, I'm not one. It just seemed to me like, we're saying that you didn't want to do this again. And then the other door opened. So what do you think about that? How have you shifted in this wonderful already path that you've taken so far in your young life because you aren't old. You are definitely like I wouldn't even say anywhere near middle age. And I'm not saying that with any disrespect. I think it's fantastic. The confidence that you have and the ability to show up in this world, is beyond your years. So go ahead, tell us a little bit about that.
I was like, I just popped like a little fairy into existence, and I was like, "You know what? I think I'll do this." That's what I
Is
was
that what it is
imagining.
like for you? I love the fact that you're saying popped like a little fairy into existence because I somehow imagine that that would be more of a enjoyable life, where you're just like, "Oh, this just seems to be more magical than we actually see," that people actually really wanna embrace. So,
Mhm.
yeah, tell me a little bit about your path so far, your journey, where how did you get to this place in your life?
So, initially, like I said, I started working when I was 14. So initially, I was hired by some students. They were college students, art students, and when you're young like that, they just pay you with food. So initially, I started modeling for some college students when I was 14, and they were doing like some of them were doing like their masters in art, and some were doing digital. They were like doing digital art. So I was in a couple different. That's how I started when I was
Oh,
14.
wow.
So,
Oh,
and
that's
I
so
also, my mom, she Walmart, so in the area that I was in at the time was a rural area. It wasn't, like a city area because we went from city, 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 city. I grew up in Korea and then we came back and I had like a culture shock,
oh,
like
wow.
adapting to American culture. So I just always felt like very odd. And so one of the things that you do when like when you're like a third culture kid and you grow into a third culture adult is like you always feel that you're in like your own little orbit, like just culturally, like you're in your own
Right,
little world,
opportunity, so I
basically.
would
So,
definitely recommend everyone to go check out Sulávon's SheShed. Sulávon, I would love for you to tell us where people can find, this show that you broadcasted. I know that, you're on LinkedIn. I know that's where a lot of people find you, but how do they find you on, Sulávon's SheShed?
okay, so Sullivan SheShed, you would find me on worldwidetv.tv. So if you go to worldwidetv.tv and there's going to be a search bar on the top, or there are two options. So you can go to worldwidetv.tv, or you can go on the bottom where it says Women on TV, Faith and Family, and then there's going to be another section that you can click on. So you would click on Women on TV because that's what we usually focus on is Women on TV, even though Worldwide Television Network is the broader umbrella. So,
Right,
and then you would scroll down, and initially we were at the top, but Shay's signed a couple more broadcasters. So, she signs the talent to the network. So I
yeah.
think I'm like the fourth one down. I'm under Katie O's Food Carnival, and if you haven't talked to Katie, you should talk to her too because she's really cool, Meg. But
Oh,
so
cool.
I'm right underneath Katie O's Food Carnival. carnival, and you just click on it, and then it will show all of the episodes from season 1 when we started in 2018. We started May 6, 2018, all the way until now. And I will warn everyone ahead of time that, you know, we started Sulávon SheShed on a student budget, so it was a bunch of students that got together and put it together. So
Well,
it's grown with us as we've gone through school. So you will notice it as you watch, like how it progressed.
but I love that because you start somewhere, and I think that these
Mhm.
the underlying words, always curious, always genuine, that's probably guided you on your paths always, always curious, always genuine. But those things, that authenticity and that curious mind, certainly, you start somewhere and then you build on that, and then all of a sudden you are, and it's interesting. Beth Simonton is on Love the Growth. She did the same thing with her nonprofit called oh my god, ICU, babe. And then honestly, oh my goodness, I'm like totally losing my mind. But yeah, but she started from nothing, and then she built this incredible, powerhouse of a nonprofit to help serve the community. But the same thing, what you're saying is you got to start somewhere, and with that, you've shown up, and now you've built in the last, what you said, 4 years, maybe even now, even a little more, such a wonderful place where a lot of people can go to learn so much more about themselves. And like she's saying, start somewhere is really good advice, but that's the only real advice, because if you can, I think you can argue yourself out of success. I think people like perfectionism, that wonderful thing we all strive for, it could also get in the way of progress. So one of the things that I would love for you to talk about is, at this point in your career, you are a fashion model. I mean, you walk runways. So it would seem to me that you strive for that too. But I love the fact that you have that entrepreneurial spirit as well. Can you talk about a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, there's always okay, so first I want to talk about a little bit like the modeling industry and like how models are treated first off. So a lot of there's a preconceived notion that models are stupid and that they're dumb and that it's just it's horrible. So not only do you get like people within the modeling industry that treat models like like dolls. They're like, oh, this is a doll I don't want to deal with anymore, and they just throw it away. And I would say that I scared a lot of people in the modeling industry because I already had the background in digital marketing, and then I was also one of the first agents that contacted me. His name is Michel Tullieri. It's actually Michael, but the way he spells it is spelled Michelle. That's why I say Michelle. So he was one of the top uh, fashion fashion scouts in New York City. So he scouted me when I first decided I would switch into fashion. So initially, when I started, I was working, as I was saying, like I was working for art students, older art students, and then I was working for professors. So I was a fine art model, and then I progressed from there. So to answer the question, so how did that work? How did everything come together? So it was just timing. And also the other thing is too, with modeling there isn't as much as an age restriction as there is with acting.
Mhm.
So I didn't start getting into the acting aspect. Oh yes, I didn't start getting into the acting aspect maybe until around 2011. So that was when I started to get opportunities from like Fashion TV, Cebu, Philippines, and then
Oh,
Bigfoot
wow.
Entertainment, which was at the time like that's like a massive production company. They're almost as big as like T Series in like India, and like they're massive, and they work on
Oh,
a global level. So one of the major studios, I don't know if Mick Glessner is, I haven't spoken to him in like couple of years, so I don't know where he is now with the pandemic and everything. But if anyone's familiar, Bigfoot Entertainment had like one of their primary production studios was in Cebu. That was like their headquarters, and then there was another one in Miami, and that was in. They worked with a lot of like Miami models. In like Florida, that region, and then there was another studio that was in Los Angeles. So that was quite a while ago, so I haven't really kept up to date with like Nick Glessner or Bebe Fam, but that was a massive project as well. So okay, so Meg, you want to guide me a little bit because I want to
Yeah,
make sure
no,
I'm
of
not
course.
rambling.
No, of course not. One of the things, you have a marketing degree too. Like, so
Mhm.
you,
Yeah.
so you, not only you do have the skill and the talent that you've done the job, the
Mhm.
modeling, the the actual promotions and things like that. But you also have the business side as the marketer.
Yeah,
So
so
it really, go ahead, go ahead.
so what I was saying is that Michelle Tulare was what happened is I'm 5'2". So in the American market, there's this weird, I don't know, I didn't experience it dealing with any of the European agents or photographers. Like I used to work with Dorothy Anthony, who was like she used to be a UN attorney, but then she got like sick of just like the straight logic all the time. So she went into talent management, which is what I was wondering if you were going to do, because you guys have the same kind of like structured personalities and you're both creative.
Yeah.
And so she went into talent management. And so every time I talk to you, I'm like, well, I think Meg would make an excellent
Oh,
talent manager. No one would mess with Meg. No one messes with Dorothy. Like no one.
no one. Oh, that's great. But
Yeah.
was
So
she someone who actually she worked for you? Was she representing you as
she
a
helps
talent,
me.
or were
Yeah,
you working?
she helps me. She had Dojo Castings. So Dojo Castings was something that she was starting in 2012, 2013, and then she signed me into it. She didn't even like sign me to a talent contract. Like she was just here, just join it. So I like was getting castings through there. Michelle Tulare was in New York, and I was having problems in the U.S. because the U.S. They got rid of their petite divisions, like
Oh,
maybe
okay.
like 10 years before I came onto the scene. So I didn't come onto the scene until 2007-ish. So that's when I started, but I wasn't getting paid until about like 2009 because I was putting together my portfolio and like making the networks. So Michelle Tulare, like right in 2009, and like Cebu Philippines and all of that, they contacted me right away. So I
Oh,
caught
wow.
the attention of like major agents right away. And Dorothy Anthony was a friend that was online, but she was referred to me by a friend that used to I guess he works in law enforcement in the UK, and he saw like my it was my old, I had like a MySpace and a Facebook when Facebook was like just starting, basically before all the controversy,
Yeah.
and before like all of that happened. So I had that on there, and so he like sent it to Dorothy, and so she started helping me and networking me, and then
Oh,
Michelle, I always call him Michelle, but some people say Michael because of the spelling, but Michelle also helped me too. So he was saying, well, you're gonna have a really hard time in the American market because the T in the American market now is 5'8".
oh,
So
wow.
and
Oh,
that's kind of
wow.
ironic, yeah, when you think
That's
about it,
ironic.
right?
Yeah.
So that a petite that's like a petite man is considered a 5'8". Most women are not 5'8". Most women are
No.
about 5'5" and under.
Oh, wow. Well, so tell me, I love the fact that you told me that there was a photographer that took this picture. That you had mentioned, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and
Eric.
what was going on here.
So this was in 2017. So the picture that Meg has pulled up was in 2017. I competed in a pageant. So it was an international and national pageant. So I competed at the time. I had moved to Los Angeles, right? So going through everything that I was saying earlier, that was over the course of years. So we're fast forwarding now to 2017. 2017 was when I started winning awards, right? So I had started at 14 and I finally won an award that was like 2007, and then 2017, 10 years later, I got like my first big award. So that was my first big award. The smaller awards were like up and coming talent, like she's just building, right? So that was my
Mhm.
first big award as a model. Was I won the Miss Los Angeles Petite Division. Before the woman that so there was Okay, so Eric Tatro is the one that took this. Eric Tatro used to be an Imagineer for Disney, and Meg helps me a lot because I still deal with the after effects of TBI. So Meg knows to like structure things for me.
Yeah.
So this was so this was taken by a former Disney Imagineer. I met him when I first moved to Los Angeles, and we met at it was some kind of after party. I think it was an after party for like BET or something
Fascinating.
like that.
Yeah.
So we met, and I liked him instantly because he didn't do drugs.
There you
So,
go. Okay.
yeah, yeah, so, I don't drink or smoke, and I don't do drugs, and that's considered bizarre, or, like, especially then, like, it's considered odd in Hollywood. So, I was, like, the odd duck out in Hollywood because I don't do that, and I'm not promiscuous either, so, like, that was another thing that was considered very odd. So Eric was like, "I guess we're friends now."
There you go. Well, hey,
Yeah.
if you're gonna find your circle in that, that's not a bad thing to find your circle in for sure. Like at least healthy habits, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Lord
yeah, I
only
got made
knows.
fun of when I first got to LA because of that. So,
Wow, it's
It
amazing,
was
like,
it
the peer
was
pressure. Well,
yeah.
you were so young, 2007, you're 14 years old, you get out, in 2017, still young,
Mhm,
you're still making your way, and you said you said you were from, Korea growing up, come back here to a different culture, experiencing a different lifestyle. It's a shock to the system, and then also that you're savvy enough to know enough of the whole marketing side and also the whole modeling side to use that, but it's interesting. It would seem that, and I saw this show the other night, and you'll appreciate this. It's called Luck. It's the new because we're
mhm,
talking about Imagineer and things like that, Disney.
mhm.
It's the new movie talking about how luck, comes about. And sometimes luck shows up in our lives because of other things that happen that like you said, you didn't win anything until you were 24, but you definitely didn't give up. So one
Mhm.
of the things I definitely love to share on my show and what makes me so happy is the inspirational quotes, because that is one of the things that I certainly benefit from myself. That, the fact of the matter is there are people in our lives that are superstars or maybe not so much superstars, but yet reading, writing, everything that influence. And this one is the one that you brought up. And I love that you brought up Diana. She's definitely iconic.
Her
And it
energy
says
is very angelic.
oh, it's beautiful, and yet she was like, as we learn later on, she was in the midst of a hell, a
Mhm,
personal hell, so that no one would know because she did present so
mhm,
angelic. And it says, "Nothing brings me more happiness than trying to help the most vulnerable people in society. It is a goal and an essential part of my life, a kind of destiny. Whoever is in distress can call on me. I will come running wherever they are." Tell me what this means to you, and why is this, I mean, it's very inspirational, obviously, but why
mhm.
is it mean is important to you?
So I think it's important to me because a lot of the energy that we have in the world right now is all masculine. And Princess
Mhm.
Diana is a perfect example. So now you have a lot of young girls who are saying, I'd rather be a king than a princess. But look at Princess Diana.
Yeah,
That beautiful, rare, feminine energy that she
yeah,
had. If I like, I was a little kid when she passed, so I didn't really know much about her. And like the people that you're going to be quoting tonight, I
yeah,
learned about them more recently. So, because of some of my friends, but like I felt like kind of like that energy from her. She
yeah,
had such a rare, beautiful feminine energy, and that's the energy that the world needs. And
yeah,
so, the reason that she is inspirational to me is that whenever someone says, "I'd rather be a king than a princess,"
yeah,
look at what she brought to the world. Like, if you
yeah,
watch her old interviews, like, she literally like, she would hold, like, small children that ran up to her during press junkets, and it was genuine. There wasn't
mm.
any, like, sense of, like, acting or pretentiousness there. It was genuine. So it's like, I think that this quote is inspirational to me because that was a genuine, beautiful woman with feminine energy that was able to share and give to others even though she went through hell behind closed doors.
Big time hell. And you know what? It's very interesting that you keep saying genuine because that is your tagline, always
Mhm,
genuine. That's important for anyone showing up in the world. And I think that your point is so on point, literally on point, because I think a lot of times, what you're saying is really quite valid. To survive in this world, we think we have to change ourselves, be something that we're not, maybe more masculine, maybe more aggressive, maybe more, forceful. And the
mhm,
reality is that if you show up really who you are and how you present in that, divine feminine, it might be even more powerful than what is construed in the world
mhm,
as, someone to be reckoned with. The
mhm,
reality is that embracing your beauty, that gentle, that angelic side of you, like the Mother Teresa's of the world, they didn't like,
mhm,
she just showed up and took care of others, she
mhm,
didn't like, try to put other people down. Like she was kind of the nurturer. So I
mhm,
love that you're saying that. And I love, of course, that, she's a princess, which is even more profound as well. And the fact of the
mhm.
matter is in what you're doing, how do you bring that feminine energy to the fore? I know that it's really important to you. How are you're iconic. You're going to make a difference. You're going to hit hard because you're really at a sweet spot where the world will listen. So how are you doing that? How are you bringing that that genuine beauty in at the same time? a force to be reckoned with.
I would say I would say that the way that I'm bringing is to kind of remind people, because I always show people this quote, and like it's like you're like, don't forget that someone existed, you know, like, and you don't go away when you die either.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
she's still around, but the thing is that a lot of people don't understand is that that's a reminder. So like that's why I always quote Princess Diana. But for me personally, like what I'm bringing to the world, I do like the feminine energy. I think it's, you know, also known as yin energy. So like yin energy is something that you need. You have to
Yeah.
have healing. You have to have gentleness. You have to have kindness. Otherwise the world is going to get plunged into just violence. And
Yeah.
so it's I think for me, it's more my way of, you know, giving through the feminine energy is like listening and, you know,
Mhm.
showing that I care and just like being, not using that as like a segue to manipulate people, because sometimes people will say it and they'll say, oh, I have, like, I am a feminine, like, I don't know, like a being. Sometimes people will say they're a priestess, but they're not actually a priestess. Like I'm actually training to be a priestess. So,
That is so
you know, like the
I
formal
didn't
training.
ask. I'm just telling you that sounds so that is so amazing. That is so amazing.
So
That
it's
is
like it's kind of like, for example, like the feminine energy. So like being a priestess, what do I want to bring to the world? Well, I want to help people, right?
yeah,
So I want to be in service to others.
I love
That's
that.
something that I've always wanted to do. And you know, modeling is the creative side. It's not like necessarily the spiritual side or like the business side,
Yeah,
right? So that is more, that's just, well,
amazing.
modeling doesn't feel very spiritual, but you know, it's
Well, you know what?
business.
But I think there's I do think that one of the most beautiful things is, you know, clothes really do speak volumes of a culture. I
Mhm.
mean, you know, come and I will tell you, I didn't say this to you when I first spoke to you, but one of
Mhm.
the things that I wanted to do more than anything was to be a fashion designer
Mhm.
because there's so
Yeah.
much expression
Mhm.
in how we present, you know, the fabrics and
Absolutely.
what they're made of, the textures, the
The colors.
femininity, the
Mhm.
colors, the vibrancy, even black and with the colors against it. There all of these concepts that really depict a period piece, like 50s, 60s, 70s, or a cultural piece. And how
Mhm.
you can't tell me that that's not like speaks words or volumes before we even, you know, even open our mouths. I think that's fantastic. I think that's so profound and on point. And I think that it does make a difference. I think that speaks even more to people's cultural and creativity as
Mhm.
well on
See,
how we want
Meg understands because
to
Meg
get
is
it.
creative too. So sometimes I'm used to coming on some of the shows I've been on. The minute I say model, they it's like they just kind of go. So
Oh, no.
yeah, so I
I
always
love
forget that Meg is also creative too. She's not just analytical; she's creative too. So, that was the thing too. So, like as you know, like the feminine energy, I want to bring that healing and that love to people, but I want to make sure that they know that it's genuine because sometimes people just use it for keywords. They don't use it for the actual thing that it's meant for.
yeah.
And you know, like with priestess training, so I'm going to train in 2 different divisions of priestess training. So I already know how to do it, but I'm getting the formal licensing so that I can open shrines in the future because
Oh,
that is how I'm giving to people. So, you know, like I'm very always very gentle with animals, with children. I'm very gentle towards other people, but there are some people where I just kind of step back because I sense that they don't have a very good like they can almost have an attachment if you want to say, but some people will look at me and roll their eyes, but so you just kind of like, you know, it's giving that kindness, that love, and just giving that just freely. And it's not to sound like hippie-ish or anything like that, but it's doing it in a structured way. So like as I grow now, like I would hope to be you know, like a high priestess like soon, but you know, like most there's also the hierarchy too. So like I think that one of the youngest priestesses in the divisions that I'm going to is, I think she's 47 or 48.
oh,
So
wow.
they're rare, like actual priestesses, and not like people that are giving you like this menu, like I'm gonna tell your fortune. Like those aren't actual priestesses.
Oh, wow. No,
You know,
no.
it's like you're not supposed to charge money for any of that. You're supposed to be doing it as, you know, like a charity, a kindness. So um I just that's what I want people to remember, that there are actually, like, even though it's rare to actually find high priestesses, and that's what I aspire to do, it's genuine, it's real.
Yeah.
So like like I was saying, I want to open shrines. Well, what do I want to do with the shrines? Well, I want to help people, right? I want
Yeah,
to do job training. I want to do, like food pantries. I want to do all of these things.
I
And
love
that's
it.
my way of nurturing, is the practical aspect. So I guess my language of love, if we were going to circle on a random stream of consciousness, would probably be acts of service. Like
Wow,
some
I
people
love
always
it.
use affirmation, or like hugs, or what was the other one? Gifts. I
Yes.
guess mine's a mixture of, my gift to you is just like making sure that you feel loved, right? And you feel that you're in a safe place and it's neutral territory. And like, I
Well,
like,
I mean,
and the thing.
imagine like in a community where you go and you actually feel loved and cared for. I mean, imagine how many people who are looking for that sense of communion again in this world because we've been separate for such a long time,
Mhm.
jumping back. I want to a shout out to Beth. I should connect the two of you with her
Mhm.
ICU baby. That's what she's doing too, and her shrine just becomes the hospitals where she can
Mhm.
go and be
Exactly.
of service, and you're going to do it in a different way, but as a service as well. So I love the fact that you bring the beauty of what is calling to you, to your soul, and you show up accordingly. And that goes now to, okay, so this one I love. And the fact is, Brandon Lee is very cool for one. And the
Mhm.
fact that you brought up this, I love it because we do not know when we will die. We get to think of life as an inexhaustible well. And yet everything happens only a certain number of times in a very small number, really. This is just a beautiful reality hit right now. It's kind of like, don't take things for granted. At the same time, be wild-eyed with wonder because it
Mhm.
just a small few moments in time if it happens to you. So tell me what it means to you. I love this. Plus, his face is just jubilant as well. So tell me a little bit what this means to you.
Yeah, I haven't read the book that he quoted this from, but I'm going to read it. It's on my to-read list. But I became more aware of Brandon Lee recently because of one of my friends. She goes, "I have an actor that you would love," and she sent me some of his interviews. I was like, "Oh my God, we would have been friends," because like he went through a lot of similar things that I went through, but as a guy, clearly.
Yeah.
So this quote in particular, is a really good quote in that it's one of those things. It's like you can't be afraid to live, but at the same time, we know that things come to an end, right? But they don't really come to a full end. So when he was quoting this quote, he was just saying, like, you don't know when it's going to happen, so live it to the fullest, right? To be to understand that it's limited. It's not endless. It's not, maybe the consciousness of the person that goes, maybe that's, you know, constant and doesn't really end, and it flows and it keeps going and it never stops. But when you're talking about like the physical body, like your physical body, there's only so much that your physical body can take over the
Yeah.
course of your lifetime.
Yeah.
So I think that this quote makes me smile, one, because it came from someone that was also had that same kind of energy. So he
Yeah.
had a very innocent energy, and that's what I sensed automatically as soon as my friends sent me the interviews. And like, it was kind of interesting because my friend, I was telling her about the interview, and she was saying, "You're going to choose people that are similar to you in some way or the other." I'm like, "That's usually how it goes, doesn't it?"
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
he was very like his energy was very innocent. He
Yeah.
was too innocent for Hollywood in many ways. And, the other thing is I've talked to his sister. So his sister was
Oh, you
going,
have?
yeah,
Oh,
so
wow.
his sister is so sweet. Yeah. So before my Instagram was, um, confiscated basically, Shannon and I are chatting a little bit on there, but he's a good example too. Like someone that, Princess Diana, from what I was told from a friend that worked with her, in the UK, he told me that she was genuinely like that, and he said
Yeah.
that he says, I showed him the quotes too, and he said, "There's a pattern here. Did you notice all the really great, beautiful,
Ah.
brilliant people died really young?" And so it was like, "Oh, yeah, I didn't think of it that way, but he has that same energy." And Princess Diana
Mhm.
had a very mature soul, and he had an old soul. So his
Yeah.
soul, he was, like 20, he was in his 20s, and
Yeah, he was
his soul
young.
was probably about 50. So,
You know what I think is very what you're saying is very beautiful, and I think that, what you're saying is actually, true. Those things that inspire us most usually come from the people that we see ourselves in. It's like we are mirrors to each other, right?
Mhm.
We reflect back the things we love about ourselves, and we
Mhm.
also reflect back the things that we might not love about ourselves so much. So it's kind of like when you're in a group with people and you're just like, they bother you or they make you smile, you have to like
Mhm.
question yourself and say, okay, why is this happening? And
Mhm.
I love the fact that you keep saying that, there's a purity of spirit in these individuals, but unfortunately, they burnt out early, unfortunately, for other reasons. But I think that when with I think that as we progress and we learn from those who've gone before us, we learn to do things differently. And I think that that's a beauty of manifesting. And I love that
Mhm.
beauty about this show is because we can use the tools that we can learn from people who've gone before us. And they always say, on the shoulders of giants, we see
Mhm.
further and we rise higher, which I think is really kind of the elevation of what we're all looking forward to do. And I think from me, from what, you're a powerhouse, but at the same time, your energy is so palpable. Like you can feel comfort and safety in your presence, which for someone who's had so much experience that you do in this industry, that's really rarity. And that's a beautiful thing because you're going to help a lot of people that you might grab onto them, whereas other people may never be able to wake them up. Like perhaps had you known Brandon Lee, his story may have been different, just because
Mhm.
of the person that you are. I always curious. Let's go there right for a second,
The
and then
outliers.
the outliers. It's
Mhm.
it's quite beautiful because I think that I can speak for you in this point. You see things differently. And
Mhm.
there's definitely, and I think that this might come from the creative side too. There's a mosaic that's unfolding before you, like because even that quote, the reality and of course, Lord Byron. I mean, my God, that you picked this, I love it. For
Lord
truth, it's
Byron.
always
Oh my goodness. So from what I've read, I remember just being very like impressed by his. Well, he's was very attractive, but
oh yeah,
he also was very intelligent. So some people, one of my friends has. He's never, obviously, neither of us have ever met Lord Byron in our current lives, but he has
but who
beef
knows
with
what happened?
Byron. So I was asking my friend, I was like, "Why do you hate him so?" And he's like, "Oh, he was so calloused and cold." So I started doing a little bit more research. And apparently Lord Byron came from a very like he was from an aristocratic family, but they were heavily abusive to him.
Oh
So I
wow.
think that what happened is he probably had personality disorders, and people just took it as mania from the abuse. So there were rumors that he was sexually assaulted by one of his male family members, that his mother was abusive to him, and because he was an aristocrat, he couldn't say anything.
Ah,
Yeah, because that was then, that was how it was.
yeah.
So, I've always loved his poems and just the way that he wrote them, and he wrote them in the moment. He was living in that moment, and it
Mhm.
was the way that he wrote the poems. Now, this quote in particular, I like because of his humor. He says,
Yeah,
"For truth is out stranger than fiction."
yeah,
I just love that because the weirdest things that happen that in this world, people just, generations later, they go, "What?"
yeah.
Like, "What has happened? Are you sure that really happened? Or are the people generations before us just making that up?" So I think that this would be a really good quote. Not only because and even though he went through so much trauma, and there was a point in his life where he was, like, well, my friend says he was a gold digger, but we went back and forth and back
I
and forth. I
love
was
that
like,
you
"Oh
did
my
research
god, give
on
the man
him.
some, like, just give them
That's
like, just
awesome.
leave him alone."
Well, it's interesting because we all know that the history, like who writes your history, is certainly, people are definitely either jaded, and I'm sure that they have a bias to it. And Leslie's saying, this is so fascinating. So many things that happen in real life, no one would believe in a novel, which is so funny. She's a novelist, and it's
Exactly.
true. You're like, you know what? You write this, and they're like, yeah, no one. And actually, when I wrote my own memoir. I
Mhm,
pitched it to a publishing house and I pitched it as a fiction
mhm.
after I'd been pitching it as a memoir, and they're like, "No one's gonna believe that." And I go, "Exactly, exactly to the point you're making, for truth is always stranger than fiction." It's absolutely the truth. Like, I have a saying, you'll love this, Sulávon, it's like,
Mhm,
he goes, "You're never gonna believe what just happened. You're never gonna believe, because that's like literally, you're never gonna believe because like mind blown, right? You have this
mhm.
issue and you're like, Well, and I think, it's kind of funny. It's kind of like, I think that you don't know what that means. I mean, of course, it's like people are playing in realms that, we from our own perspective might not have exposure to, but that's what I love about reading, especially what you're saying here, and that you did the research on this guy to learn more, about him. And the
Yeah, he
fact
had
of
a
the matter is,
horrible childhood. Like, I don't know if
wow.
you've ever read some of the bios about him. His family was horrifically abusive to him. And then on top of that, he had a clubbed foot.
Oh,
And
wow.
they were just brutal to him. Apparently, like when he had to deal with the other aristocrats, the children
Oh,
that he had to hang out with, he had to hang out with, more like was subjected to, made fun of his clubbed foot. So I just like when I read about it, I'm like, well, how in the world did this? And he died young too. So if I
yeah.
remember correctly, he died at 36 or 37.
Oh,
So
wow.
he was, but he also, even though he had all of that horrificness happening to him, it was kind of like, it kind of made me think of Princess Diana, right? So Princess Diana had that private hell. He
Yeah.
was a little bit more open about his hell. He wrote about his
You
hell. It
wrote
was
about it.
published. Yeah, he was very just like honest about it and very blunt about it, which was crazy for that time period. Usually people just hid these things, like
Yeah.
behind
Like,
closed doors.
shh, don't say
Mhm.
anything. People will say, people will talk, people will, and I hear what you're saying. I think, well, I have a very interesting question then.
Mm,
You are a broadcaster now. You have a show. You
mm,
ask those questions that bring out the stories. Is and these people that you're referencing, Diana, Brandon Lee, Lord Byron, they couldn't tell their story. They perished too soon, but their story has been told later. You're actually in it telling the stories as you go. I find this incredibly healing. It is healing. It goes back to the fact that you're offering an opportunity for the voice to be heard,
mm.
right? I love and where do you think that comes from? Is it your family of
I
origin?
think
Is
I
it
inherited from my grandfather, actually. So one of my grandfathers was a former monk, and he was, a former monk before he left, because he had grown up in like colonized countries. He was born in 1939, and a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of countries were still colonized even into the 50s and 60s.
wow.
And so he was subjected to British colonization. He was subjected to French colonization. He was subjected to American occupation by the American federal government, like at some point in time too. So my grandfather, like I always felt that he understood me the most. Like there was just like they always say it's a generational thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's always it usually goes to the grandparents. You always connect with your grandparents.
Yeah.
So this particular grandfather, I always felt understood me. Like even if people thought like the rest of the family thought I was eccentric or like odd, like he was, you know, um, I don't know. I'm trying to think about a phrase that he always understood me no matter what. Like he always understood
Yeah.
me. And one of the things that he did, like even when he was no longer a monk, even he completely changed his life trajectory. Like he was a monk, and then he ran into my grandma. So my grandma had, her family was from China. So
Oh,
she was like really beautiful and stunning to him because she had like the fair skin and the long
um,
dark hair, and like she was just like really sweet. And like he had grown up basically essentially an orphan because of the colonization. His family had been slaughtered, and so
amazing.
and in that time, in that period of history, like you were raised in orphanages, and so he was raised
Wow.
in Vientiane, like by monks. So and
Wow.
it was just kinda, yeah. And so like from what I understand, he was like in his late mid or late 20s or late 30s, somewhere around there, and he just like changed his life. Like he suddenly he told the monks, the head monks, like I found someone, I want to marry her, I want to have a family, like I lost all of my family. He's like, and he just kind of took off.
Oh,
So
wow.
my grandpa, I am like the female version of my grandpa in a lot of ways.
Oh,
So
wow.
even when he was no longer a monk, and he like had a family, and then he went into business, agriculture, and he was highly intelligent. I don't have my grandma's our grandpa's intelligence, but he was like genius level intelligence. So he helped a lot of people. So even when
Wow.
he was no longer
Amazing.
monk, was still in service to others, right? He was still helping them. So when people were fleeing, when they had to go to the refugee camps, he was the one that helped everyone.
Isn't that
So he
amazing?
was just
You know,
one.
I think it's fascinating what you're talking about because I'm listening to you
Mhm.
talking about your grandfather, and it's clear, like, you're telling me what your story is like, and what you choose and what you wanna do for your life, you know, you're building on his legacy, so to speak, and the fact that he basically gave you the nod of acceptance as you were for all the beauty and all the eccentricity and all the wonderful quirks and, you know, that you are, that it's opened yourself. And I will say this, I said it at the outset, you have this confidence. And it's not in your face, I'm gonna do like, but it's definitely you present yourself with an air of, and I don't know why you're saying that you're not as smart as your grandfather. You're it's a genius and a wisdom that, you know, goes beyond your years, which I love. Like I said, I absolutely love the quotes that you gave because even Harriet Tubman, you add, throw this one in.
Oh,
I
I
freed a
love
thousand
her.
slaves.
I was
I
reading about her. Yeah, I just oh my God, her biography is amazing. So apparently
amazing.
she was hit in the head. One of her slave masters was punishing someone, and then he was throwing something and it hit her in the head. And so she said, like I just find this so phenomenal that a woman had a TBI and she was able to free thousands of people. Like
Wow.
how? Like,
How,
how does
yeah,
that work? And, like, the strategy this woman had, she was so clever. She was cunning. She knew how to
yeah,
deal with the authorities.
I
I was
know.
like, "My God."
Yeah.
That's a
And this
gift,
was
isn't it?
a black woman in the time of slavery, and just it's
Yes.
mind-blowing. But it also
Yes.
goes to speak to the human spirit as well, right? And
Mhm.
even in the quote, and I'll read the quote, or do you wanna read it? Go ahead, you read it,
Oh, you
because
can read it. It's fine.
"I freed 1,000 slaves, I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves." I mean, wow. I mean, tell me what this means to you.
That's just so much inspiration to always help people no matter what
Yeah.
happens. And you know that like for example, one of the girls that I had in my show, she's well, she's older than me, so I should say woman. So one of the women that I had in my show, she was a former sex trafficking victim.
Oh, wow.
And she works with RAIN. She works with other nonprofits that help human trafficking victims, not just sex trafficking, but human like labor trafficking victims as
Wow.
well. And this made me think of her, like, because she's like how you are. She is very articulate, and I honestly I hope you will interview her on your show. She's incredible. Like you
Oh,
will
wow.
love her energy the minute that you meet her.
Yeah.
But this reminded me of her because she went through that too, and that was modern day slavery. And there's a lot, like a lot of people think that slavery just kind of ended. So it ended on paper. So it ended on the surface, but there's still a lot of like human trafficking and there's sexual slavery that still goes on. And she was a victim of that. But
Oh,
through what she experienced, she helps others. And so this quote to me kind of reminded me of her. And so I have like a lot of love and respect towards her because that takes a lot for someone to come forward with that, knowing that they could be targeted by the people that targeted them, whether it's a crime syndicate or
yeah.
whether it's a family member or an individual. And she was targeted. So the spouse, it was her spouse that did this to her, that sold her. So
Really?
he started to stalk her and track her, and he died as soon as she came on my show. And the other thing I wanted to tell you is that she had another family member who drove 1,000 miles to harass her. And I was telling her, I was like, you really need an attorney. Like, you need like an attorney to protect you because the more that you speak about this, you're gonna get hits like put out at some
Right.
point
Oh,
because
wow.
that yeah. So that's obviously, I know that might make some people uncomfortable, but like that's a real issue that people are dealing with right now. So we go back to Harriet Tubman's quote. This was 100 years back, almost
Yeah.
200 years back. They're dealing with that. So I know someone now that's dealing with slavery in the modern times. So I just like I saw this quote and I said, "That's incredible."
Wow, you
And
know,
yeah,
what you just said, and I was in New York this last week, and on the
mhm,
doors, they have those signs that say, "If you know someone who's being trafficked, you know, this is like a contact," on all the hotel rooms. So it's like literally something that's out there, and what you're saying is so important. It's just a different time period, but the same things still happen. It's just
It's still human nature. Humans are humans.
humans are humans. Oh my God. And I'm sorry, I interrupted you before
Of
you.
course.
Well, okay, so thank you. I wanted to finish the quotes with one of my favorites, Gene Wilder. I mean, he is classically one of the funniest human beings. And so once again, back to what you've been speaking to, kind, just kind. And Leslie's saying they have signs in the bathroom of the airports in Las Vegas too, which is just, it's important that everyone's aware so we're not blinded to the fact that these things still go on. But back to Gene Wilder. Well, I'm a Jewish Buddhist atheist, I guess. I'm going to tell you what my religion is. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Period. Terminato. Finito. I have no other religion. I feel very Jewish and I feel very grateful to be Jewish, but I don't believe in God or anything to do with the Jewish religion. Gene Wilder, 1933 to 2016. I love that. It's kind of like all encompassing. It's like we don't have to label ourselves. And the fact of the matter, he says, do unto others. Please speak to this. And I love that of the quotes. This is the last one that we'll end with, at least before we go on to the next portion. But tell me, what does this mean to you?
So I was introduced to Gene Wilder's movies a little bit more recently. There were some movies that I saw when I was I think like 12, but I didn't realize it was Gene Wilder. Like Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
And all of that. So those are the children's movies. I didn't really see the other movies until more recently. So I really, there was a movie that he was in, and it was with Harrison Ford. I think it was called The Frisco Kid, and I saw that, and I love. There was a scene that I absolutely love in this movie. That whole movie is so sweet, and it's very funny. But I loved there were a couple different scenes, but the one scene I want to share the most is that there's a scene where his character Rabbi Avram and Harrison Ford's character. I can't remember Harrison Ford's character's name. Sorry, guys. But they're on a beach, and the criminals come to the beach. And should I ruin the scene? Oh no, I don't know if I should.
No, you have to tell it now. I'm like, I'm like bated breath. You've got to tell the rest of the story.
Okay.
Oh my God.
So there's a scene on a beach. I'm not telling what part of the movie. So there, you guys will have to find it if you haven't seen it yet. If you've already seen it, you already know what I'm talking about. So there's a scene where Rabbi Avram is trying to save the Torah, right? The Torah fell into the beach fire. So he's trying to save the Torah. While the criminals, there are two thugs that are trying to kill Harrison Ford's character. Rabbi Avram forgot that no matter that if the written word does not precede a human life. That was the meaning of that scene. Yeah. And I think that Gene Wilder's quote is a good example of that.
Yeah.
He's saying you don't okay, he's Jewish, right? But that doesn't mean that he's not going to be kind to non-Jewish people. It doesn't mean that he's not going to be kind to himself because he's Jewish. It doesn't mean he's not going to be kind to other Jewish people. So it just means like you said, do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. So it doesn't matter if it's ethno-religious or not. Yeah. So whether you're Jewish or not Jewish, you should still be kind to other people. Whether someone is or is not Jewish, you should still be kind. So it doesn't matter. So like your ethno-religious background, your racial background, your ethno-religious and ethnicity are obviously of the same category, but it doesn't matter. Still be kind to people. And I love this quote. And also I did watch a couple interviews because some of my friends were helping me. So I was like, I need to find quotes. So
that's awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's a group effort. Thank you. I'm so, I appreciate these. So that they're different too. So I was like, yay.
Mm-hmm. So I was like, I can't think because I change it all the time, so I don't know what quotes now, and I change my favorite color all the time. So my friend, she's Irish, so she just sent me some look up this person, look up this person, look up this person. You're gonna love them right away. So, Brandon Bruce Lee. She sent me Brandon Bruce Lee. She sent me Princess Diana, and she sent me Lord Byron. And so I was like, oh, I remember reading about them. I just remembered. It was just weird. It was I just suddenly remembered.
Awesome.
But,
oh my God.
Yeah. I think this quote is very beautiful, and it's also from a very beautiful man. So Gene Wilder, if a lot of people don't know, he grew up so he was his parents were Orthodox. I don't know if they were ultra Orthodox, but he was kind of conservative Orthodox. his mom wanted to help him. So they had fled basically, like Europe, and he was in the US, and she sent him to a military school. So they were in like a very small Jewish community at the time in like Milwaukee. And I feel weird that I'm telling like people's like life stories.
No, I
I'm
love
like,
I have to tell
let
you,
me tell you what I read.
Gene Wilder is one of my favorite comedians, and
Mhm,
I have to
mhm.
say I did not know this about him, which is so fascinating because I loved all of his movies, and Richard Pryor was in them with him constant.
Yes.
We grew up on Gene Wilder. They were that was the fodder for our laughter growing up. That was the
Mhm.
soundtrack. It was Gene Wilder. It was all that he brought to the table. Of course, Willy Wonka, but then all of the ones that, the Silver Streak and I mean, my God, I those are the movies that just made us laugh. And the fact of the matter is that you're telling me about his story is it goes to you that you're such an inquisitive, like curious, back to always curious, and that makes total sense to me. You know,
Yeah.
that this is
And I
perfect, I
wouldn't
love it.
tell you, yeah, I was so shocked because I didn't my friend told me, oh, she had read his bio. So she read his bio. My friend she's a vicarious reader. Like she she sends me so many books. Like when she wants me to help me with something, she sends me a book to read. That's her way of nurturing as a friend, right? It's like I'm good because she's very like cerebral. So she'll just send a book.
Oh my
So
god. Well, let me tell
like
you, my audience are a ton of
mhm,
authors. They're going to love
mhm,
you and love your friend at that because,
mhm,
readers, I always say the downloads. You download and it's wonderful to be, even if you're not quote unquote like a voracious reader, but
mhm,
you're with people who are, it
mhm,
just adds a bit of this other element or dimension to your life for sure, right? Because if
mhm.
regardless of your modality, how you express yourself in the world, everybody comes to the table with something pretty miraculous or magnificent, I would say. So I love that. That's amazing. So one of the things I want to ask you, I love the fact that, like I said, Gene Wilder, one of the things about the manifesting component of the show is I love to get my guests ideas around, you're so successful and you're so, you've come such a long way in I'd say a short time. What are the things that you use as your guide for manifesting in your life?
For manifesting in my life.
Like
You mean
like what
in a
tools?
practical sense, like what I do day to day, or do you mean more like in a kind of like a spiritual, inquisitive kind of way?
Well, I love the fact that you talked about your grandfather. You definitely had a wonderful role model, and I think that there's something obvious to me about you is that you have a belief in yourself. It's not a question whether or not you're able, it's a question of how and what's the next step. That is my perception of you, having known you for this short time. So my
Mhm.
question to you is, how do you see your world when you're, addressing or going after a certain goal? Or going for a vision that you have of your future or your present or whatever comes to mind.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a couple different things. First, I'm going to start with something that's more abstract because
Okay.
I think this will make sense, and then I'll go into more like the practical, kind of like day to day kind of things.
Okay.
So, one thing that I've always strived is to be in service to others, but not to be taken advantage. Because, like, my
Mm.
grandpa was very good at spotting wolves and people that were
Ah.
trying to use him, because he was a monk, because monks are by nature very gentle, right? Um, Priests and priestesses are by nature gentle, but because of that, you can run into people who are a bit more dubious. So,
Mhm.
um, my grandpa had like he always had like a sixth sense basically, so he was very attuned to like the intentions of others. So I think that was also what made him able to help others very rapidly during war times and to get everyone safely to refugee camps. So
Wow.
I think that not on that grand a scale, because I think my grandpa had a lot more suffering than I've experienced in comparison to him because of what happened historically. But I think that my service to others, what I try to emulate how my grandpa would always make me feel, yeah, like when I saw him interacting with other people, like in his community or even outside of the community, they always felt like kind of like this sense of like you would see it when they would interact with him. He would like rejuvenate them because it was
Oh,
his energy, right?
oh, that's
So
cool.
I would like to be like that at some point in my life, but I kind of like the way that I would explain it is like, do you know when it's a hot day outside and you want water, right? You want a
Yeah.
glass of water. And sometimes people just want an ice glass of water. Or maybe you come in from a cold day and you want a warm glass of water. I think that when you are in service to others and you're interacting with them, you should always give them that same kind of feeling. Does that make sense?
That's
So when
beautiful.
they
Yeah.
come to you, right? They come to you, they need help, they're scared, they're hurt. You need to make them feel that same sense of like if you were giving a pitcher of water to someone and you were pouring them a glass of water. You need water. Everyone needs water, right?
Yeah.
That's what we need to survive in this world, next to air and like
Right.
food. But water is that thing that you can survive on, even if you're running out of other aspects like food, right? Water is
Right.
what you need. So I think that when you are for me, from that kind of abstract perspective, when I interact with people, I want them to feel as though I just gave them a glass of water. So they're like,
I
okay, I
love
feel better.
that.
I feel rejuvenated. So, and also water is one of the primary healers of your body because your body needs hydration.
Yeah.
So, I think that from kind of like some people say the astral body, which is your spiritual body that you have to
Mhm.
strengthen when you do prayer and meditation. There's that in your physical body. So your physical body is what we have right now, right? This is our physical body. We still have to take care of it. So when you
Right.
interact with people, you should be rejuvenating both aspects, right? So you should make them feel when their spiritual body feels rejuvenated, their physical body will feel it as well. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. It's it absolutely it's I think it's even perfect for the theme today, rest when you are
Mhm.
weary, but also give your body and your soul what it needs. And I love the fact that you're offering in service to someone is to provide them that which they need most, whichever that is. Like you're saying, that they would feel like they had a glass of water
Mhm.
when after they've interacted with you and kind of like it's like your skin plumps up again, you
Mhm.
feel like, like you said, what your grandfather, they felt rejuvenated. What a wonderful gift to give someone else, a form of rejuvenation by virtue of just being in their presence and interacting that way. Wow, that's beautiful. Absolutely. I love
I'm
that
not
you said
there
that.
yet, guys. I'm
Okay.
saying I aspire to be that way. I'm still on my journey.
Well,
So
I
on
think
the
that you're quite far along. I mean, a lot of people, I love it. They always say that this earth school, some people are
Mhm.
still in kindergarten and they're 95 years old. You're like, what are you doing? Like, is there something that you're going to like? Is it that you don't like playing with the blocks and you're just happy there? And then
Mhm.
other people like, are 5 and they're already, college doctorates, right? That they already
Mhm.
experience this level of, old soul, like we're talking about the individuals who those quotes came from. But
Mhm.
yet at one point, the whole idea of like coming back to the spiritual sense, I love the fact that we're in these bodies to
Mhm.
experience life as it's presented to us. And I love the fact that with one of the things that you manifest is by basically being a glass of water or nourishing or that, wonderful nourishing sense to another person, to manifest your own dreams and goals because people really want to be around people like you. And like you said, not to be taken advantage of, but as an offering with your boundaries. And I love that you said that. That is really important. I think that a lot of people forget the
Mhm.
boundary component, and you're
Mhm.
like you said, your grandfather was a monk. I don't know if you find that in Hollywood. I can only imagine, that is something that you have to at least be, aware of, certainly, as you go about and do what you do in the world.
I've sidestepped many of them. Some
I'm
of them
gonna
were
say, I
scary.
was like,
Yeah.
very,
But,
very, very
from a practical perspective, I should share that as well. So I
yes.
generally write things down. So I usually have like a notepad. I use a legal pad because they're
Oh,
the easiest.
awesome.
I write it down. So I'll just write it in a list. So that's a practical way of write. So you feel it, you see it. It's that
Love it.
memory from feeling it and seeing it. Then well, we already mentioned that caring for your spiritual and physical body, so you have to sync them. That when you sync both of those, you're able to help others, and you're not depleted when you're doing that as
Mhm.
well. So a lot of the things that I do, and that I learned this, and it was like I remember being little, and he was like, "Now you're going to meditate." What the heck, Grandpa?
But was that something that you were surrounded with as a child, meditation? Because for me, it was prayer. We went to church and we went to we
Mhm.
were told, "Say your prayers, do this." Like, it was more rote. And as I have gotten older, meditation was like, oh my God, you want me to sit still and be quiet and meditate? No, no, no. But then it became something of my own kind of practice. I made it my own. So it's something that, like the glass of water you're speaking to. But my question to you is that, were you surrounded by this as a child, that it just became a part of who you were as you grew older?
So I did kind of rebel for a little bit. So I was just kind of like, nope, not going to do it.
Nope.
And then I realized I was tired. I was getting drained. I was dealing with like, no one hurt me, but certain industry people. So I was starting to feel depleted. And then it was weird. I just kind of, I remember just waking up and going, you know what I need in my life right now? A little bit of meditation.
So it just
Like
like, you just woke
actual
up one day
meditation.
and like said, this is what I need and I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I was like, I feel very depleted because like when you meditate, like prayer is like asking the question,
Yeah,
and meditation is receiving,
I
the
love it.
answer. So I was like, okay, I need to work on this a little bit. So then I made it into my schedule. So like the same time I write things down, I put it in my schedule first thing in the morning. What do I do? Meditate, right? So it clears any of that built up, and maybe I had a bad dream or something to that effect. Maybe I had a rough night and I forgot to do it. So I put it into the routine. And so it's like building that muscle. So like when you go to the gym, so there's your physical body, but then there's also your spiritual body. So you've got to strengthen that, and you've got to sync them together. So sync everyone. I don't know what that meant.
But
So
it is kind of like sync. It really is sync everyone. It kind of puts some kind of order in your world when you
mhm.
start that way, right? So it doesn't feel like you're so out of whack. I like that
Yeah,
you said that
yeah.
actually.
Yeah, and, so that's how I do that. So I write it down, and then I care for both physical and spiritual bodies as well. And then when you have that, you're able to go and think like any kind of thing that pops up, you just go with it. And so the other thing is, the other third thing I would say is probably going with the flow. So a lot of times, what I learned is that when you think and you kind of like, I always talk about water for some weird reason. Like I'm not like a water person. Like I don't like swimming, but I keep talking about water today, and I don't know why. I'm just gonna go with it. So I was saying like when you go like after you've written it down, you have your intention right. So it's like writing your intention, getting your intention
Yeah.
there into your thoughts, and then your spiritual and physical body. You strengthen that. Like I do it in the morning. I used to do it 3 times a day, but then I was just so relaxed. So I only do it in the morning and the evenings now. So when you
You're
do
just like
that,
get nothing done. You're
yeah,
like
I'm like,
walking
"Oh, I'm just
around.
so relaxed. I'm just gonna sit here right now and
Yeah.
just." So so what I would do is that I would just kind of go with the flow. So once you've already cleared out any toxicity and you've strengthened your spiritual armor and you built the muscles, so things don't really affect you as much as they would, and that's a good thing. Some people think, well, maybe that means you're too nonchalant and you're not going to help anyone, but you have to be that way because you can focus better. So when if someone comes to you and they're in dire straits, you can focus. Like when you
Right.
pray and you meditate, it helps you focus. That's why a lot of martial artists, and I used to train in martial arts as well, that's why they teach you to do that. So think about it.
Uh,
You're able to sense another person's intention. So I think
uh,
that my grandpa, I think that he mastered that. I think that's why he was so good at it. And so I think that I'm playing a little bit of catch up. So I'm going to go do this formal training, even though I've learned, like how to do it. I still need the formal training if I want to open shrines, because they don't want to like a random person going, hey, guess what, guys? I'm a priestess and I'm opening a shrine.
yeah.
Are you are you gonna like charge us for weird things? Are you one of those
Oh,
like sidewalk psychics or something? No, I
that's so
assure you I'm
funny.
not.
Well, I will say that, the way you put it, how you built up those 3 points, but ended with
Mhm,
the go with the flow, a lot
mhm,
of people get in trouble because they're always pushing against or going up the river when they should be flying down,
mhm,
always, and they make their life even more difficult, when, sometimes it's just kinda like, it kind of feels to me, and it's so funny that we're talking about water because I think
mhm,
I'm the one who needed to hear this more than anything else, which usually is the case with my interviews. Is always for me. Is everyone else just gets to be benefit, but from my messages. But
mhm,
the reality is that at this point in time, with what's happened in the past, you can't change it. You don't really know what's going to happen in the future. You can't do much about it, but the acceptance of where you are right now and then how you just ride whatever wave or
mhm,
whatever flow comes your way feels just so much like aliveness, right? It is
Mhm.
this kind of like looking forward to. And I really do appreciate that you say that because it really allows for the good things to come into your life too, rather than you kind of pushing your own agenda, which is really, really something that I needed to hear tonight. Thank you, Sullivan. So I definitely love those points. And since you started off with intention too, and I asked at the beginning of the interview, what was your intention for this evening? And then what page you picked. I love the synchronicity you can find, some kind of little, nuggets of wisdom in how things unfold or go with the flow. So what
Mhm.
was it that your intention, what was it
So
that
I
tonight?
chose number 6, but then I got lost on what page I was supposed to go to because I didn't know if I was number 6 or chapter 6 or August 6.
Well, interestingly enough, I'm gonna go with the flow and allow you to pick whatever it is that what it speaks to you the best, and then what was your intention that was to meet that?
So this one, I went with page 6 this time. So it
Okay.
says, January 4th, if you don't make time for your dreams, then who will? It says most people were so busy knocking themselves out, trying to do everything they think they should do, they never get around to doing what they want to do. So as Kathleen Winsor, she's an American author, and the intention that Meg has written in the book is we all live very busy, stressful, and overly packed lives. Take time out of yours to ask yourself, am I taking the time to do things that make me feel alive? Never let others' mundane expectations take precedence over the activities that are important to you. In your desire to perfectly fulfill others' expectations, you could be missing out on opportunities that would bring you satisfaction and joy. You may assume that you will have all the time in the world to accomplish your dreams, but in reality, you may be putting off pursuing exactly what you need to do to set yourself in a positive direction. And for
Yeah.
what? To drive yourself crazy as you prioritize others' values over your own? Today is the day. Start thinking about what sparks your curiosity. Spontaneously brainstorm a list of activities that stimulate your creative spirit. Don't wait for the nod from another. For if you don't make time for your dreams, who will? Sorry, guys. I do voice acting, but I'm not in the voice acting mode right now, so I'm butchering some of Meg's sentences. Sorry.
I'm gonna tell
Um,
you though, what you're saying that like totally matches up with what we've been talking about
mhm,
tonight. And it furthers my question with regard to you. And I'm like, I'm sorry, one of the things I love more than anything is that you send us away with some final inspiration. But before we do that, one of the things that I love about you, and I'll go back to the fact that you are definitely, like I said, and I will say this again, you have this air of confidence about you, a belief in yourself. And I love being around people who are that, because I think a lot of times we're waiting for other people to give ourselves the permission to do what we came here to do in this world. And you're going to open shrines. I have no doubt in a million worlds that that's going to happen, and probably sooner than later. You have a whole, Sulávon SheShed. You have a boutique. You have all of these things that you're bringing a lot of beauty into this world. And it makes me smile because I think we are inspired by those who are doing what it is that we want to show up and do in this world as well, right? To show up and follow that calling or that path, that dream. And I love that what you just read, because regardless of whether it wasn't, it was as perfect as it was going to be, because we heard you.
mhm.
So before we go tonight, and before we tell everyone all the wonderful places that they can find you, what is a final inspiration that you want to share with all of us so that we can, wake up tomorrow morning with those wonderful things that you've shared with us tonight and just look at the world differently, or experience our own lives, or that person looking back from the mirror at us differently? What's that final inspiration?
I was thinking about that. I already mentioned spiritual armor because it's very important to always strengthen that when you're in the physical realm. So you want to make sure that you're strong in both aspects. But I was saying the other thing that I would say is probably to be in the moment. I know
Mm,
that's a lot harder said than done, because I've been. like when I've been talking to some of my friends online, they're saying that they have a lot of anxiety with the
Mm.
way that the world is going right now. Not just with, the deaths from the pandemic or like anything that's going on in the world, like politically, but there's a lot of anxiety. And, I always circle back to making it a point to strengthen like your spiritual body and your physical body, because when things get really bad, whether it's collectively or whether it's like on an individual basis, that will protect you and push you forward because you can still focus. So I think
Yeah.
that's really important. So that I would say, like, probably that. Like, I always say that. I say that again and again because of, like, some of my friends. Like, I just recently taught one of my friends how to meditate, and he said that his anxiety has gone down a lot. So
Wow.
um, I think that it's so important. And just like that, having like when you're interacting with people, to like sometimes people get I know that you've probably seen this a lot because you work in a lot of times people put on pretense, they put on
Mhm.
kind of that veneer, right? It's that kind of like the professional armor that they put
Yeah.
on that you forget. But you're naturally really good at this. Like you and Sajal are masters at this, at like talking to people, not talking at people.
Yeah.
So, like, that's another thing too. So live in the moment, strengthen your spiritual body and your physical body, and move forward with that. Always help others, and I think that's really important
I love
too.
it. That's beautiful, and I think a lot of the what you said with regards to being in the moment does eliminate a lot of the anxiety that we may go through, and God, Lord knows we all need to chip away at that a little bit each day that, it's kind of like, there's a visual that I have. It's kind of like a roller coaster. Like the anxiety goes up and up and up and up and up, and you're on the other side, and you're like, it's chaos. It's chaos.
Mhm.
And you can't just go from here to here. You have to actually push yourself back up over the mountain, back to the other side again. But the way you can do that is really being present in the meditation in the moment and building up that spiritual armor, which you've spoken to tonight so beautifully, that allows that, the physical and the spiritual to meet each other and come bring back to a sense of sanity again. And I do find what you're doing, and I'll put this back up here with the SheShed, is a place where people can go, the SheShed, everyone goes to the shed, but the SheShed to find your sanity again, to find those other people who are doing those things in this world that we get to be inspired by so that we can get our sanity back again. And tell us a little bit about where we can find you, Sulávon, and where we can connect with you, because I think a lot of people are going to be really interested in doing that, and I'm definitely going to connect you with Beth for sure. But go ahead, tell us a little bit about where we can find you.
Oh, perfect. So if you would like to see Sullivan SheShed, we are on at, well, I'm going to give the Eastern Standard Time Zone because it seems to be easier for everyone. So we are on every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can view our show at worldwidetv.tv. And so it's also, we're available on other platforms, but that seems to be the easiest for everyone to go to. So again, it's www.worldwidetv.tv. And in terms of social media, we have we just we Megan mentioned this earlier. So our Facebook took our accounts, so now we've restarted on TikTok. So we're starting from scratch. So we have one TikTok account. It's Sula Chic Boutique. So that is for the live stream shopping. I work with a corporate company in Beijing. So that is what that is. So the second one is at Sulávon's. There's no apostrophe. It's at Sulávon's _ SheShed. So that's going to be the new TikTok for Sulávon SheShed. And if anyone wants to find me on LinkedIn, then it's Sulavon Dollie Bollinger. So again, it's LinkedIn
Ah,
Sulavon. Yep,
I have that.
Sulabn. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Dollie, and then Bollinger. And if you guys are, I guess if anyone wants to stalk me online, you can go to Sulávon.com.
I love that, and I almost forgot to ask you why. What is your nickname? Why? What were the origins of the Dolly? How did that come about?
Oh, so Michelle Tullieri. So do you remember when I was telling you he scouted me?
Yes.
He scouted me like right away and wanted to like sign me for like beauty campaigns. He wanted to sign me for beauty campaigns. I didn't even talk about any of the campaigns or anything like that, because the pandemic just like Just caused some chaos there. But Michelle Tulare gave me the name La Renaissance Dolly. So that was where that name came from. And then Dolly is just the shortened version of it. So the other name that I go by is Sula. So that's my other nickname. So we've been using that for the boutique. So Sula Chic Boutique. Yeah.
Sula Chic Boutique. Oh my gosh. So everyone, please reach out. She's a wonderful. I'll put all the information in the notes on both YouTube as well as the podcast, and also in the Facebook feed. And I want to put it side by side with Magical Guide to Bliss, because I always am grateful to my magical guide because of the magical connections I find along the way. And definitely Sula in Dollie, the Renaissance Dollie, is one of those magical connections. And I'm so grateful that you gave me the time tonight to have this conversation, to share all your wonderful advice and inspiration and the journey that you've had. And I can't wait to see all the wonderful things that you will do and what kind of impact you're having on the world and what you're going to have on the world, because I know it's going to be pretty miraculous and certainly colorful. So before I do go, I definitely want to put this up because I love it so much. And she's a Tiara girl, so you know I was gonna love her from day one for sure.
Can you
And
put
Leslie
yours
saying
on
it's
there?
another. Oh, okay. So
How
there
I
we
should
go.
better.
This is for you, and not that I don't love it anyway, but
Yay!
but everybody, certainly please go reach out to Sulávon. She is wonderful and she's doing wonderful things in this world, and she is making a difference, and you can totally see why with everything that she shared tonight. So without further ado, I want to thank you again, Sulávon. I want to encourage everyone to be out there and doing those things that you're deliberately creating the life of your dreams, dreaming big. And let's all raise the positive vibration on this planet together so that we all can live out our bliss, helping each other and letting us love each other exactly where we are. And like I said, wishing you bliss. Thank you so much, Sulávon. And one more thing to share with us before we go.
What should I share? What should I share? Oh, I don't know.
You shared your beautiful smile, that's for sure, and I wish you had a tear on too, so we could be like twins. I was like, "Oh, yes, I look like a beauty model." I love it. I award winning at that for sure, but, I will say this, you do have a beautiful smile, you have an incredible energy. I love the fact that you're so aware of energy in other people. That is certainly a game changer. People who have that ability are able to read a crowd before they even show up sometimes, and I think that's even an incredible gift. So thank you so much for your presence tonight. And thank you all for watching. And have a wonderful, 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 blissful, wonderful day. All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye. Thanks.